you hear me? Hello, 1, 2, yeah, good. Hi everyone, I'm Antoine. I head product at busuu. We're a language learning startup based out of London. And every month, millions of people use our apps to learn a new language. And the question we ask is, how do we make sure we build the right things? I think it's great to be here today. There's been some amazing insights from other speakers. And I'm really happy that my talk's going to resonate with a few points that were made previously, both by the panel on user empathy. So they were talking about how do we blend qualitative and quantitative feedback, as well as the talk by Wasim, who asked how do you make sure that your customer problems are actually aligned with the metrics you want to move. Now, I'm the only thing that's separating you from lunch, so I'm really sorry about that, and please excuse the culinary metaphor I'm going to use now. So if startups were restaurants and product managers were cooks, then roadmaps would be the menu. No matter how well dishes are cooked, when menus suck, restaurants close down. And that's why menus matter so much to restaurants. And that's why roadmaps matter so much to startups. That's why they're the crown jewel of any product-focused company. But in order to have a great roadmap, you need a sound process to decide what's on it, and most importantly, what's not. As a result, prioritization is a top concern for most product managers. It's by far one of the most popular topics in Q&A sites, product management blog, and other online communities. Although it's not what we're hired to do, it's what we have to do in order to achieve our real goal, to create successful products that bring value to the customer and the business. The need to prioritize, this comes from a very simple fact. We simply don't have enough time and resources to work on everything we can come up with. Thus, we need a process to determine the sets and sequence of things that should be worked on the product at each point in time, given our constraints, to deliver the most value. It's actually such a strong need that a fellow product person built a periodic table of prioritization techniques. And I don't have a clicker, so I'm sorry. Can I just do that to go for the slides? Sorry, all right? OK, thanks. Thank you. So you can find this amazing periodic table on a blog about product management, which is aptly named foldingburritos.com. And yeah, they have a great article about prioritization techniques. Now, who here would say that they delight in the product roadmap decision process? Quick show of hands. OK, there's a few still, but you know, it's pretty good. I think, therefore, this talk has really a reason to be. Draining, mind-numbing, heart-wrenching. These are just a few of the adjectives I've used product managers to describe times where they had to defend their product roadmap proposal. Now, we've all seen bad roadmaps. We think, thank you. Thank you. We think bad roadmaps focus solely on solutions and ignore problems. We think bad roadmaps are decided by the highest paid person's opinion or the loudest shouting person's opinion, who, guess what, often happens to be the product manager. We think bad roadmaps are about perfectly executing a flowed plan, or as Eric Ries would call it, achieving failure. We think bad roadmaps lack alignment between teams, and bad roadmaps don't focus on the right things. Now, let me say we can't be the ones casting the stone here, as we used to be guilty of all of these sins. When I joined busuu, the product roadmap process looked something like that. Every quarter, the whole company would get together, and people would just throw ideas around, kind of like, hey, what idea have you got? And these things would be plotted in a basic impact effort matrix, and the management team would just pick a few to do for the next quarter. This process had all of the problems described here. At the end of the process, we used to feel something like that. No matter how good the execution of the projects and feature is, this kind of failure can mean the termination of your team. Worst case, the end of your company. Who knew writing menus could be so high stakes? So we ask, what if there was a recipe built for focus on the right things? What if there was a recipe built for alignment between teams and stakeholders? The one we found allowed us to smash our targets. It's helped our metrics skyrocket. One of our core KPIs as a business is conversion to premium, as we're a freemium product. And we've tripled this conversion rate since January. Now, as all good recipes, ours is not novel. We've taken stuff from great people in and around the profession and concocted a hodgepodge of design research and business strategy techniques. Now, as a disclaimer, the very same recipe probably won't work for you. It works for our product at our current size with our current organizational design. However, we do believe that the guiding principles behind the current roadmap recipe can hold true for any company and any product. And that's what we want to share today. So this is a simplified, high-level overview of a product roadmap process. Who here has read the design sprint book blog articles? Quick show of hands? OK. So that might be a bit reminiscent of the way they mapped their own process in the book. We thought the way they did it was actually awesome, so we decided to steal it. Jake and John, if you're in the audience. Now, just like a design sprint, our process has various phases with different activities. At a very high level, observe is about aligning with the company strategy. It's about choosing the right KPIs to focus on and identifying funnel bottlenecks. Observe is about the what. Understand is about understanding customer problems to solve in order to open up the funnel bottlenecks and move the KPIs we decided to focus on. Understand is about the why. Ideate is about coming up with solutions to solve these customer problems previously identified. Ideate and decide are about the how. Now, let's go through these. Observe. Once again, observe is about aligning with the company strategy. It's about choosing the right KPIs to focus on and identifying funnel bottlenecks. It's about the what. So typically, this means starting from the vision and mission of your company. Every quarter, we make sure that the stuff we build is in line with the vision and mission of a company, obviously. Detailed business plan. Now, we all know that your real numbers will never match your business plan. Nevertheless, we are convinced that you need a solid Excel model to understand the growth mechanics of your business. What's the premium conversion rate you need to hit in order to generate X in revenues? What's the maximum cost of acquisition you can pay in order to get a decent payback on your marketing campaigns? How many months do you still have before you crash or before you take off? Every company should have a business model, at least for the next 5 years, which gives a solid reflection of the business and updates it monthly. Typically, this would be CEO or CFO domain. At Busuu, this model provides the basis for a roadmap planning process. If we know, for example, that we need to hit X in revenue, then we know that we need to hit Y% premium conversion with the new users. So what do we need to do in order to hit that? Out of the above, we create core themes that will guide us through the entire year. Core themes are more qualitative and could be things like grow international or crack monetization, and they are developed by the management team in our yearly offsites. Once we know the numbers Once we know the numbers, Once we know the numbers we need to hit from the business plan, the core themes we want to work on, we prioritize the KPIs for this quarter. The prioritization is decided by the management team and becomes strategic guidance for the company. For too long, we've tried to chase too many rabbits at a time where some of them were even running in different directions. For instance, in the case of a freemium business model, paid conversion versus retention. A straightforward way to increase conversion in the freemium app is to push monetization more aggressively by locking out more features or more content. By doing so, however, you will turn off more users more quickly, and this will likely trickle down in a drop in retention. Having a clear priority, for instance, paid conversion versus retention, helps tremendously in all product-related discussion and gives the team the laser focus it needs. Back to a very own roadmap, one of the key KPIs we had decided to focus on last quarter was day 1 to day 7 conversion, which is the percentage of users that upgrades to a premium plan in their first 7 days. With a clear focus on the right KPIs, we then zoom in to understand the micro conversion points in the funnel where leakages occur. Day 7 conversion, for instance, is too big of a KPI to investigate. We need to break it down and look at more granular conversion points in the user journey. So we map out the micro conversion points between each steps in the user journey. In the boxes you see in this map, we typically have conversion rates. We then ask, where do the largest drop-offs occur? Is it in the conversion from download to registration? Is it in the start of a learning activity until the end? Is it from the visit of the paywall until the cart or at the end of the shopping cart? Back to our very own roadmap, for the day 1, day 7 paid conversion KPI we had decided to focus on, one of the main leakage points we had identified last quarter was paywall conversion, namely the percentage of users converting to a premium plan after visiting a paywall. Now, product managers and data scientists would be carrying this research typically. Once all drop-off points for a given KPI have been mapped, we're able to prioritize them against each other based on the impact they have on said KPI and how far they are from the benchmark. With a clear understanding of where we should focus our efforts, aligned with the overall company targets, we're finally ready to investigate. The whole point of Observe was to make sure we would be investigating the right things. For those who've been part of a design sprint before, Observe could be reminiscent of the target activity that you do at the end of the first day, which makes so you're actually going to spend the next 4 days focusing on the right things. Now, some of the tools of the trades we might be using to get this job done. Understand. As the name implies, is about understanding customer problems to solve in order to open up the funnel bottlenecks identified in the previous step and move the KPIs we decided to focus on. We've identified the what. We've identified where we had problem converting users. Now we want to understand why. One thing is to understand, for instance, that cart conversion is a main leakage point. Another is to understand why this is actually happening. Why are users dropping off at this very point? So the product team dives deep into the drop-off points and is tasked with identifying underlying customer problems. This is very important. The primary focus of the roadmap becomes customer problems instead of features. Features, as we'll see later, only become solutions to the customer problems we'll have identified. And like in Observe, there's no specific sequence of activities in Understand. Instead, there's a blend of qualitative and quantitative research methods used in parallel. Here are a few activities we might be carrying. Obviously, we'll be targeting specifically users who dropped off at the conversion points we decided to focus on. We also like to validate customer problems found in user interviews, as they can be based on small sample sizes. I usually interview around 40 to 60 people for a given leakage point, a few live or on the phone, most for intercom. Extract the top 5 to 10 most common customer problems, and then send a survey to a much larger sample of similar users. This helps make sure that we don't fall for the vocal minority. Back to a very own roadmap, 2 of the customer problems we had identified for causing low paywall conversion in Q3 were, 1, that many users in emerging markets didn't have a credit card and so couldn't purchase a subscription using iTunes or Google Play. 2, some users weren't sure they'd actually be able to learn to speak a language fluently by investing their time and money in our premium product, which is kind of a catch-22 as they can only know whether it works after intensive usage. So how do we prove it to them beforehand? As you see, we like to frame customer problems in the first person. Simplify syntax, it helps create shared understanding. We also like to prioritize, once again, these customer problems based on how often they've been mentioned and by how painful they are to our users. As you're probably starting to realize now, feature prioritization is just really a part of the process. First, we prioritized KPIs against each other. Then we prioritized underlying customer problems. Once we're confident in the set of identified customer problems, we can start thinking about how to solve them. Some of the tools might be using to get the understanding job done. What happens then is that we present these customer problems to the whole company. Each team and department then holds an ideation session where all team members can contribute ideas to solve these customer problems. This is big. Framing the ideation around customer problems is really good and helps tremendously with alignment. Anyone who's been to ideation sessions where they felt most feature ideas were out of sync, for lack of a better word, will understand that. Customer problems become creative constraints, as our people are now free to ideate and explore in alignment with both the business objectives and our biggest customer problems. Typical ideation session will go as follows. Customer problems are written as columns on the whiteboard. Participants have around 20 minutes to ideate, each in their own and in silence, writing ideas and post-it notes. This is what designers would call the diverging part. Once the time is over, participants stick their ideas under the columns and customer problems it's solving. Then voting starts. What designers call the converging part, right? Each participant gets a set number of votes. 5, we found, tends to be a good number. It's small enough to force hard decisions, but big enough to produce patterns. We then asked participants to cast their votes using sticky dots and markers and make clear, that's really important, that these votes are non-binding. We want to get their ideas and see which way it goes, but prioritization of these ideas will happen later down the line. We now have loads of ideas to solve customer problems previously identified. We also know the ones our team is most excited about. Most importantly, we give everyone in the company ownership. After every team has had its ideation session, product managers then proceed to gather top ideas from each of them. A nice outcome of framing the ideation session around the customer problems is that we'll often see the same stuff coming from different teams and departments, which also mean less stuff to prioritize. By this time, we have a backlog of ideas to solve customer problems that are responsible for the main leakage points in the KPIs that we want to move. Some of the tools, again, we might use here, as you see, mostly analog. Time to decide. The prioritization of features happen in a spreadsheet with a tab for each leakage point. In each tab is a backlog of feature ideas solving customer problems responsible for the drop-off points affecting our top KPIs for the quarter. Features are ranked from top to bottom by their RICE score, which is a score for each feature calculated using the RICE scoring formula from the people at Intercom. Who here has used the RICE score before? Quick show of hands. Okay, quite a few. Who would use it again? No? All right, that's pretty good. So basically, RICE is an involved impact effort analysis, which makes a lot of sense. It factors in the uncertainty inherent in impact and effort estimates by adding a confidence weight. It also avoids bias towards features you'd use yourself by adding a reach factor, which estimates how many people each project will affect. You can find a template of the RICE scoring formula on their blog. The nice thing about RICE is that it really prevents a lot of the highest paid person's opinion or loudest chatting person's opinion syndromes. We all suffer from the effect heuristic. Things we like seem less risky and things we don't seem more risky. The best way to fight against such personal biases in complex judgments is to defer to formulas over intuition. Now back to our very own roadmap. Through ideation sessions, we had identified solutions to the previously mentioned customer problems underlying a paywall conversion leakage. One of them, for instance, was direct career billing, which allows users to pay for subscriptions in in-app products using their phone bill, therefore solving the customer problem of users not having credit cards. Another solution was solving this one, the I'm not sold on the efficacy of your app customer problem, was to integrate results from an independent study on busuu carried by researchers at City University in New York, which proved that using busuu for 22 hours was equivalent to one full college semester of Spanish. Of course, we are aware that there are lots of unknowns in this formula, but life is complex, and we do believe that we are better guided by an equally imperfect ranked list than by pure opinions. Finally, decision time has arrived. We know the max 3 to 5 KPIs we want to focus on this quarter, ordered by priority, and understand the funnel bottlenecks in each. We know which customer problems most impact these KPIs, and we have a solid ranked list of feature ideas of how to solve these issues. We now get together and select the features we believe will have the biggest impact. It will, of course, still be a passionate discussion, but much more educated and less painful than it used to be. Important detail, we only select features for the first 6 weeks of the quarter. Why? Because, first of all, it's impossible to accurately forecast what's going to happen in the fast-moving startups 3 months from now. And second is that in the past, we ticked off a quarterly feature list without necessarily hitting our targets. Now we reassess the situation mid-quarter, look back at what we launched, and also update our estimates, and then select the features for the second half of the quarter based on the same logic. Our roadmap now focuses on problem first, then features, aligns solutions with customer problems and business objectives, aligns teams and stakeholders. It's decided based on a formula and data over gut and intuition. It's flexible and changes during the quarter. Of course, there's still a way to go, and our process will most definitely change as the company grows and the organizational structure changes. However, while we might change some of the activities we carry, the guiding principles behind the current process will remain. Observe, understand, ideate, decide. Where do we have a problem? Why do we have a problem? How should we solve this problem? These are simple, very, very simple guiding principles indeed, which anyone can take back to their own kitchen and use to make their own recipes, which make sense in the context of their company and their own products. We have no doubt you'll be cooking something awesome, and we're very, very excited to taste it. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
2 or 3 minutes for question, if there is any.
Sorry, I was gone already.
Before he runs away. Any question before we break for lunch? Going once, going twice. There is.
In terms of prioritization, once you put something on the roadmap, are you putting, like, it seems like you put solutions on the roadmap rather than the problems. So, but if your company is more than 50 people or there are more than 10 teams working, like prioritizing the solutions, it becomes really difficult. So how do you suggest, like in a mid-sized company, it should be handled?
I think, I mean, as you say, it's a function of size, right? And I think in a small company, the whole company can be aligned on solving the same customer problems. In a bigger company, I think, like, you know, a good solution for me at least is, you know, matrix org structures where you have teams that are maybe like KPI-focused teams, customer problems-focused team, that then use this own, this very framework within their own team, but definitely not as a company-wide thing. That would be my answer. So like squads, you know, you would have a squad that's focused on this very KPI, and then they look at the customer problems underlying this KPI, and then they come up with solutions. But then the prioritization and the between KPIs, customer problems, and solutions only happens within the context of that very team.
One question.
You were talking about identifying leakage in the product for the different micro conversion funnels, and then prioritizing those leakage based off of how they're performing to benchmarks. What do you use to define the benchmarks for each piece? Yeah,
that's a really great question. So I think there's 2 inputs usually that we use there. Number 1 is our various platforms. So, you know, we can have like, you know, how is that leakage point on Android compared to iOS and web? And, you know, obviously they're different populations, but it gives us a sense as to what could be the normal. And then the second thing is just talking to people in the industry and looking at, you know, what they think is, let's say, like a normal rate there. So that would be like our inputs there for usually finding a benchmark.